Brothers and sisters. Other day we have been talking about the initiations. We covered up to second initiation. Just will give passing reference. The initiation is given by the masters of wisdom. The actual initiator is the Lord of this earth, who is supposed to be Sanat Kumar, but in his name sometimes Lord Maitre, who is the world teacher, he gives the initiation in his name. Powers are delegated by the Lord of this earth to the world teacher Sanat Kumar, this Maitre. We have been also talking that before one can take the first initiation, he has to fulfill certain requirements, certain qualifications. And those qualifications, just giving the passing reference, have been the discrimination, the dispassion, purification, and unification. Unification means the realization of the unity of life, which is expressed in the form of love and compassion. And finally, it is expressed in the form of service for human being. Before one can take the first initiation, the candidate is expected to have at least 40% or 50% aggregates in all these four qualifications. When the candidate is ready, he is presented before the White Great Brotherhood by the two masters, and the first initiation takes place at the astral plane. His consciousness, the consciousness of the disciple, is raised to the intuitive plane, and there alone he, for the first time in his life, he experienced the unity of life. Prior to that, it was just a concept, a mental concept, that the entire humanity is sharing the one and the same life. But when his consciousness is raised to the intuitive plane, in the intuitional body, there alone he realizes and experiences the unity of life. After the first initiation, even if he comes back to the mental and astral and physical plane, since once he has experienced the unity of life, his behavior, his attitude is entirely changed. He becomes the lover of humanity, he love all, hate none, and he is all the time engaged in the welfare, in the service of humanity. Now, before he can take the second initiation, he has to remove three factors. The first is the delusion of the self. There is a strong sense of separation in all human beings, and all misery and suffering and all the vices are resulted by this very factor, the I as separate entity. So this sense of separation has completely have to be melted out. Until unless the sense of separation is removed, the one can't go further on the spiritual path. So this illusion of the self has to be completely washed away, not in portion or in part, but fully he has to become conscious that there is no such thing as separative self. Life is one, and the life is being shared by all the humanity. Apparently it appears as if the individual is separate entity, but in fact when he experiences on the intuitive plane, there he alone he knows that there is no such thing as separative self. All selves are one. There is only one life, all pervasive, lofty, profound consciousness, and in that consciousness the centers or focus are being created. Wherever the forms are there, the center or focus is created. At that center, which you call it spiritual center, out of illusion one feels as if he is separate, but in fact he is not separate. Here he has to completely fully understand that there is no such thing as separative self. Then the next factor is doubt. In the beginning, the doubt may help. One should not accept anything and everything blindly, but one should question it and try to understand in an analytic way. But by questioning, by doubting, and by working hard, pondering over all on these higher aspects of life, one must come to an understanding that there is no doubt is left. No doubt is left regarding law of karma, regarding the law of evolution, regarding existence of the masters. So one has to be completely, one must have complete conviction about all these laws. No doubt is left. The third factor we have been talking about, the superstition. No superstition should be there, because the superstition or the rituals, ceremonies or any performance, these all are maybe helpful in the beginning, but finally one should have reached to a state where no rituals, ceremonies or please come. So these three factors, namely delusion of self, doubt and superstition, this should be completely washed away from the life of the disciple. Then the disciple is ready for the second initiation. At the time of second initiation, again the expansion of consciousness, the consciousness of the disciple is expanded to the higher level, and again he realizes that there is no separate life, all are one, and he becomes the active co-worker in the scheme of evolution. Then up to this level we have covered. Now we will be talking about the third initiation. Before one can take the third initiation, again he has to cast off the main three factors. The one is the desire for enjoyment of beauty of forms, and the desire for worldly things, and desire for formless life. In Buddhist literature it has been named as Rup Rag, Kam Rag and Arup Rag. Rup Rag means the enjoyment of beauty of forms, whether it's a beauty of a mountain or sunset or beauty of a man or woman. If there is clinging to enjoy that beauty, it is a factor. One has to remove this thing. And no desire for material gain, no desire for wealth, power, possessions. It should be completely washed from the life of the disciple. He must be completely desireless so far as these desires are concerned. And then also the desire for life. One may continue to live. There may be clinging to live, and he may not be ready to sacrifice his life if there is a need. But one must come to a state where, if needed, the life can be sacrificed, and the disciple is ready to sacrifice even his life. When these three factors, namely Rup Rag, Arup Rag and Kam Rag, these three desires are completely washed from the life of the disciple, then he is ready for the third initiation. And third initiation is given by the initiator himself. First initiation and second initiation are given by the world teacher, who is supposed to be Lord Maitreya, in the name of the initiator Sanat Kumar. But the third initiation and fourth initiation are given by Sanat Kumar himself, one at the mental plane and other on the intuitional plane. So at the time of third initiation, the candidate has to face a lot of dark night, because up to third initiation the candidate or the disciple consider himself as if he is separate from the master, and master is external guide, external agency. But here he has to realize that the master is not separate, but master is his own consciousness, and he has to realize this thing, that he, the disciple and the master are one and the same. When the candidate reaches to a state when he has left the entire world, every near, dear, friends, relatives, all are left for the sake of the master, and here he do not find the master himself, then he becomes he faces a very perturbed state, that I have left everything, anything and everything for the sake of the master, but now master is also not there. He faces a very awkward situation, as you must have read Jesus Christ, when he was crucified, and it was at the time of third initiation. He also wept bitterly when he was going to the crucifixion. Then the people or the other persons were stoning him. So he wept bitterly, and he said, "Oh my father, oh my master, thou also hast forsaken me." So that state was a very miserable state. it was a test. It is a test that candidate must know that he and his master are not two, because up to this stage he considered as if the master is separate, but in fact the master is not the form or the body, but it is the consciousness itself, and that consciousness is all pervading, all pervasive, is within his own center also. So he has to realize that the guidance or suggestions or hints or teachings are not coming from some external sources, but it is the consciousness which is deep rooted in his own center of being also. Then again he has to remove the four fetters before he can take the fourth initiation. And the four fetters are the hatred, anger in the form of even subtle form of irritation. There should not be any place for irritation. No hatred. He loves all, hate none. So hatred, then anger or irritation, pride, and finally ignorance. These four fetters have to be completely removed from the life of the disciple. Then he takes the fourth initiation, and it is said that the fifth initiation is not given by any master, but the candidate or the disciple takes himself the fifth initiation. And after the fifth initiation, the individual become perfect human being, adept. Then there is no compulsory birth for him, but he can voluntarily come down to the earth and serve the humanity. At the time of fifth initiation, it is said that seven paths are opened before him. Either he can completely merge the individual consciousness into the divine consciousness or the universal consciousness, or he can retain his spiritual unique entity and serve the humanity. He can also become the server or some official in the spiritual hierarchy. Seven ways are open before the candidate who has completed the fifth initiation. And most of the cases, those who have been serving the masters, they take this choice. They accept this choice that they will come back and serve the humanity as the masters are serving. Now, let us, we have just given the passing reference of the initiation, because up to first initiation or second initiation we can talk in detail, but regarding third initiation, fourth and fifth initiation, these are very high state of evolution. We have no access in detail about these higher state of evolution. Now again, coming back to the wisdom, knowledge, wisdom and self-realization. You see, the information, the informative knowledge which we gather from the books, this is just a borrowed knowledge, informative knowledge. This won't take us much, but until and unless this informative knowledge is lived in our day-to-day life and it is transmuted into wisdom, it won't help much. So ultimately, the disciple or the candidate, after receiving or having so much information, learning so many things, one has to attain his own original wisdom, and until unless the informative knowledge is transmuted into wisdom, and there is no other way except by living it in our day-to-day life. Many times it is so happen that we know many things, but when the question of practical life comes, then we are lacking. So here the precaution, one must be very cautious that one should not merely have the head learning or the informative knowledge, but he should have the soul wisdom. Other day also we have been discussing that head learning is not much helpful until unless one has the soul wisdom, and the wisdom comes only from the center of our own being. It cannot be received from books. No one can transfer the wisdom from one person to another person. It is the original understanding, and original understanding comes when we really live the life of truthful unselfishness, with full love and compassion and affection and cooperation, and one becomes the server of the humanity. When one lives the life of austerity, when one lives the life of self-sacrifice, then these things are transmuted into wisdom. Annie Besant also have given some guidelines in the book, little book, in the Outer Court. She has used the word spiritual alchemy. Here also I was is reading it, the spiritual alchemy word has been written on the board also. So it's a very good thing. In chemistry, those who are scientists, they know that there is some process, by the process of alchemy, the copper can be converted into gold with the help of some catalytic agent. Here, the spiritual alchemy means we have the baser and grosser energies like anger, jealousy, hatred. These are the grosser and baser energies. These grosser and baser energies have to be transmuted into finer and subtler and helpful and beneficent forces. Like anger should be transmuted into noble indignation, and then finally noble indignation must be transmuted into love. And such a person who is walking on the spiritual path must must love all and hate none. Similarly, anger, hatred, jealousy, all these things must be completely washed away from the life of the disciple. Now, the wisdom, how this wisdom or this understanding can be converted into self-realization. The wisdom associated with love and will, because there is an inbuilt urge in every human being, inbuilt urge to unite with the universal consciousness. In fact, there is no division, but apparently it appears as if the individual consciousness is divided from the universal consciousness or the remaining life. This is also an illusion, but howsoever there is a strong sense of separation, that the individual life is separate from the universal life, and there is an inbuilt urge to realize this thing. So until unless there is a love for the welfare of humanity and there is a willpower, will to unite, this self-realization or the realization of the original true self is not possible. Here, one more point has been suggested. I was studying other day the writings of the Annie Besant. She has written that there is a fusion and fission. Two words are used in the scientific modern technology. The fusion means when two matter particles collide with each other and become one, and fission means one particle become two. Here, the individual unit of life and the universal life, they become fused in the deep state of samadhi. This fusion takes place, and at the time of fusion, when the individual life is completely merged with the universal life, then the self-realization takes place, and there is no further sense of separation or anything. There is a complete realization, the wholeness of life, the oneness of life, and after having this experience of unity of life, after having this experience, the wholeness and oneness of life, then there is a natural flow of love and compassion, and this love and compassion expresses in the form of service, and such person becomes the server of the humanity. In Mahatma letters also it has been suggested that this is a very difficult task, self-realization, even from informative knowledge, from knowledge to wisdom, this is also very difficult, and further from wisdom to self-realization is still a more difficult task. And one should have to make the holistic approach, not lopsided approach. Many paths have been suggested, like path of devotion, path of action, and path of wisdom. But in our theosophical parlance, even Mahatmas also have suggested that one has to make the holistic approach. By lopsided approach, by single approach, this ultimate reality cannot be realized. In one of the Mahatma letters, I am reminded, is written that the devotion, wisdom and action, all the three are needed. They have said that devotion without wisdom and action is blind superstition, and action without wisdom is a folly, and wisdom without action is lame. So one has to make the holistic approach, action, wisdom and devotion. All from all the side one has to hammer it. In Light, I am reminded the statement which has been given in Light on the Path. It also says, man is to himself absolutely the way, the life and the truth. There is one road which seems most desirable to each temperament, But the way cannot be found by one road alone, by devotion alone, or by wisdom alone, or by religious contemplation alone, or by ardent progress alone, or by simply doing self-sacrifice labor for human good. All the steps are needed. None of these steps can take the disciple more than one step forward. All the steps are needed to make up the ladder. So all these steps are needed. By single approach, by devotion alone, or by action alone, or by wisdom alone, one can't approach the reality. So one has to make the holistic approach. Now, Madam Blavatsky, in his Key to Theosophy, has also suggested 7 points how to reach this state which we call self-realization. The first point she has said that one should have the perfect physical health, because this is a very arduous work, very tough work. Nervous system must be very strong. One must have the very strong physical health. The first point is the perfect physical health. Then perfect physical, astral and mental purity. Purity is a must. Without having the perfect purification at astral and physical and mental level, this hard work is not possible. So far as the physical purity is concerned, it's very easy. We can have the physical purification by having sattvic diet and proper cleaning of the body. Because it's a visible instrument, we can clean it, it's very easy. But to have the purification at the astral and mental level is very difficult, because it's a purely invisible instrument. So far as the purity of astral level is concerned, one has to work very hard. Our feelings, our emotions, our passions, our desires, one by one we have to tackle it very strongly, because there are so many passions, so many emotions. There are negative emotions like jealousy, anger, hatred, lust, greed. All those are the negative emotions. As we have been practicing at the physical level and using our discrimination faculty by taking the sattvic diet in place of tamasic diet, here at the astral level also we have to employ the good emotions, positive emotions in place of negative emotions. Say for example, there may be emotions of anger, it should be immediately replaced by the emotions of love. There may be emotions of sex or lust, immediately should be replaced by the emotions of devotion. So we have the negative emotions and we have the positive emotions also. Whenever there is a feeling or emotions, negative emotions in our psyche or in our astral body, immediately should be replaced by the positive emotions. Similarly, desires also, we may be having negative desire. One may be desirous to become the millionaire, one may be wanting to become a very big person, very powerful, wealthy person. On the other hand, one may desire to help this humanity or to have the spiritual growth. So there is a difference in desire and desire. There may be a material desire, on the other hand there may be a desire to become like the master. It is said that in his presence, in presence of the master, all desires die except a desire to be like him. So if one has that type of positive desire to become like master, to become the server of humanity, to have the burning desire for liberation, though it is a desire, ultimately this desire also binds. But to overpower the negative type of desire, in the beginning one must replace all the negative desires into positive desires, so that he can bring the purification in his astral nature. Similarly, at the mental level also, because the function or the nature of the mind or the nature of the mental body is thinking, speculating, imagination, recording, all those things. So when one is bound to think, then at least he should always think for the positive side, because one can't be in the beginning one can't be perfectly thoughtless. So when he is bound to think, the thoughts are there, so at least this much he can do, that in place of having a negative thought, in place of having harming thought for others, let him have the good thoughts of divinity, thoughts of deeper aspect of life, what Atman is, what Brahman is, who am I, from where I have come. All those positive thoughts will help him, thoughts of the master. thoughts of the higher things. So if in place of having a negative thoughts or the mundane thoughts or the concrete which are related to the material world, if one can have the positive thoughts, thoughts of divinity, thoughts of deeper aspect of life, thoughts of the masters, thoughts for service, how he can be a better instrument to serve the humanity, how he can come in contact with the masters, what are those qualifications, let me acquire those qualifications so that I can come in contact with the masters. If all the time the mind is filled with the positive type of thoughts, then his mental body will be purified. So this is a big task. This is not an ordinary work which can be accomplished in one day or 2 days. It is a lifelong task. I am reminded in one of the Mahatma letters, Master K.S. is written when he was talking about the purification, process of purification. He has said the process of purification is not a work, is not a job of a day, a month or a year. It may continue to the siege of life. So the process of purification may continue to the siege of life. It's not a very easy job. One can't say that I am perfectly and completely pure at my heart or at my mind or at my all level. It's very easy to say that I am pure, but when the master will come and will look at my heart and will look at my thoughts and feelings and intentions, then only if he says yes, you are perfectly clean, then only it can be taken as granted that I am clean. But most of the time we are having so many negative thoughts, so many ambitions, so many wanting. Even if we are expecting something that at least others should appreciate us, others should recognize us work, even that is also a negative thing. So the process of purification is a really very big work, and one must work very hard to bring that purify our lower nature, because until and unless our lower nature is purified and is completely attuned with the higher nature, with the higher self, this hard work of the self-realization is not possible. So that's why Madam Blavatsky has suggested that there is a perfect purity at mental, astral and physical level. Then she has also suggested that there must be a motive, unselfish motive, perfectly unselfish, because selfishness is the root cause of all suffering, misery and vices. One has to become completely unselfish. Even while serving for the masters and serving for or working for the welfare of humanity, one must be completely unselfish. So even if there is a tinge of selfishness, then the entire things can be damaged. So this unselfishness, unselfish motive, or the motive just to help the master's work, the cause, without any personal wanting or personal desires, personality of anything. So this is also a very important thing, that one must have the complete, purified, unselfish motive. Then courage should also be there. A man can do what a man has done. We must be courageous, though the work is very tough and very hard, but if we are resolute and courageous, then we can do this work. So courage also is one of the important point. Then she has also suggested that insight, right understanding. Understanding is a very big thing. Without understanding, nothing can be done. Because when there is understanding, not intellectual understanding, but actual understanding, we may be having so many ideas and concepts in our mind, many information we may have filled with many informations, but actual understanding should be there. Even Krishnamurti has also suggested that when there is right understanding, when there is understanding, the action is spontaneous. When there is no understanding, it is just imposed discipline. So let us not live in the imposed discipline, but let us live the self-disciplined life. And self-disciplined life is possible only when we really understand for ourselves. Not because we have read from any books or we have listened from our senior brothers, but when we really understand for ourselves. We know that the life of austerity is good. We know the life of purity is also good. We know that we should be always unselfish and engaged in the welfare of humanity. If we really understand, then it will help a lot. Krishnaji always gave a lot of emphasis on the understanding, actual understanding. And it's also fact, when there is a actual understanding, the things which are futile, the things which are limited, the things which are purely temporary, unessential, it is dropped automatically because of the understanding. And with this understanding, or with this discriminating faculty or right insight, the dispassion or the vairagya can come only. Otherwise, vairagya or dispassion cannot be brought about forcibly. It must come with the understanding. When there is understanding, when we understand the limitations of things, we understand the futility of the things, it's dropped automatically. So the understanding is a must. Is a very important point which Madam Blavatsky also suggested. Even at the feet of master, the word discrimination has been used, all the same thing, discrimination or right insight or understanding. These are the detachment also is a must. Madam Blavatsky also suggested this sixth or seventh point, that there must be the life of detachment. Detachment does not mean that one should be indifferent, one should have the indifferent attitude about the life surrounding him, but he should be very much affectionate, very much compassionate, very much loving, yet detached. It's a very difficult thing, but one has to acquire these qualifications, these requirements. Otherwise, it's not possible for any candidate to go on the spiritual path safely. So these are the 7 points which Madam Blavatsky also has suggested. The golden stairs also, Madam Blavatsky also has suggested, though many times we repeat these golden stairs, but these are the real steps on the spiritual path. It's not merely repeating of the golden stairs mechanically, but we should leave those steps, like a clean life. We must have the perfect cleanliness. Without leading a clean, ethical and moral living, the spiritual progress is not possible. So clean life is a must. Even the first step is very difficult. Clean life means perfect purification at physical, at astral, at mental level. So even the first step is not possible for every one of us. What to talk of the 13? The 13 steps have been suggested in the golden stairs. The clean life and open mind. Our mind should be open. We should be ready to accept and listen carefully anything and everything. Sometimes we are closed-minded. We have the prejudices. We are the fundamentalist. We don't want to listen others' viewpoint. But when we are listening anyone, we must listen it with open mind. We should keep the window of our mind open, so that the fresh air, the fresh thought may come in our mind. It's very difficult to be open mind. So clean life and open mind, a pure heart, again the purity of heart and purity of mind is a must. Purity of mind and simplicity, purity of heart and simplicity of the mind is a must. Without purification or without this purity, further steps are, further progress is not possible. So the clean life, an open mind, a pure heart, an eager intellect, an unveiled spiritual perception, a brotherliness for all, readiness to give and receive advice and instruction. Not only that we should be ready to receive, but we should be ready to receive and give. To give and receive advice and instructions, a loyal sense of duty to the teacher, a willing obedience to the best of truth. Once we have placed our confidence in and believe the teacher to be in possession of it, a courageous endurance of personal injustice, a brave declarations of principles, a valiant defense of those who are unjustly attacked. You see, these two states are just double dimension. One says that courageous endurance of personal injustice, and valiant defense of those who are unjustly attacked. If some injustice being done to us, we must bravely accept it, tolerate it. A courageous endurance of personal injustice. If personal injustice has been caused to us, we must accept it, we must tolerate it. Courageous endurance. But if some other person, our friend, our brother, or some weaker section is being unnecessarily offended or is being harmed by some other person, उसके लिए for that this suggestion, the valiant defense of those who are unjustly attacked. If my brother or my friend is unjustly attacked by some other person, I must stand there to help, to rescue. I must offer myself for the rescue of such person. So these are the really golden stairs what we have been suggested by Madam Blavatsky. But not only repeating these things, but we must live in our day-to-day life. So these are some of the points which are relating to our practical life. As we have been suggesting that the discrimination, the dispassion, the unification, the love, the compassion, unselfishness, service, self-sacrifice, labor for human good, devotion, reverence for the higher beings, impartial self-observation, mindfulness, watchfulness, choicelessly aware about what is being happened, not feeling any guilty. Let us not feel guilty, but let us be fully aware about our own feelings, about our own actions, about our own thoughts, thinking. If you are really watchful and aware and attentive and alert, then you will see it will be dropped. The feelings, the negative impulses which are coming from the center of our own psyche, the negative thoughts, the negative actions, the intention. Let us question our own intention. It's very easy to point out others that so and so is not performing right action. So and so person is a not right person. But what am I? It's very difficult to observe our own fault. But if we are really interested in spiritual progress, then in place of watching others, we have to watch. We have to be watchful by to our own thoughts, our own feelings, and our own action. And by this process of watchfulness, the impartial self-observation, our character will improve. Our the degree of purity will increase definitely. Most of the time, we are unaware about our own faults. The moment we are aware that, oh, this is not a right thing, Tyagi, what you are doing, immediately it is dropped. And the individual is one step forward. So one has to be very, very careful, alert, mindful, watchful about his own thoughts, about his own feeling, and about his own thinking. Let us not live the life of hypocrisy. We know many things, but we do not perform, we do not act in our day-to-day life. We may preach others, we may point it out to others, but when the question of following it in our life comes, then we are lacking. So let us not be merely intellectual or the sofa sitters, but let us apply all those higher qualities, higher suggestions which have been suggested by the masters in our day-to-day life. And then if we are really living that life of sacrifice, then definitely we will be able to have the contact with the masters. Masters have written at one place that masters are interested in the person who is interested in the things in which masters are interested. Kindly note, the masters are interested in the person or in the individual if he is interested in the things in which masters are interested. So masters are not interested in our personal salvation. The masters are interested for the welfare of the entire humanity, for the welfare of the entire human beings. So if we are interested for the welfare of human beings, then masters, we will invite the master's attention. Then we will be given by his help, his suggestions, and his strength, his wisdom, his love, so that we can perform better our duties and our actions. So these are some of the points which I have told before you. So 10 minutes we have left for further discussions. And
perhaps with the exception of our revered Dr. Radha Bernier, I have not yet heard a speaker with depth of knowledge and fluency of expression as Brother Satyaveer Tyagi. I have of course been in the society a mere 16 years or 17 years. Some of you here have been much more, and you must have heard other speakers also. But my personal experience is that Brother Satyaveer has really imbibed the knowledge and has now reached a stage when he is lovingly sharing his knowledge, and that itself is an act of sacrifice, because the knowledge, as the Shankaracharya Puri had once said, when knowledge roots itself in the heart and comes forth as loving action, then it becomes wisdom. So he's at that stage, and we have been extremely fortunate to hear him over 3 sessions. plus the session on meditation. You see, he has read hundreds of books perhaps and prepared a 9-day course on the essence of theosophy. I think the course was named, what was the course named?
Workers training and study camps.
Workers
Training and study.
Training and Study Camp. It was meant for theosophists who will become better workers by understanding. And it is extremely difficult perhaps to condense the essence of these 9 days into 3 sessions. I mean, almost a Herculean task. And yet, I think personally he has covered at least 80% of what the essence is, if not more. And this itself is a very creditable effort, and we are indeed fortunate that he has come. He himself asked us. We did not know that he would be passing, and that also speaks of his, shall we say, desire to share his knowledge. He was on his way to Pune and he said, there is a week in between, can I come and speak to the audience of Bombay? And we gladly took the opportunity. So the session on meditation, of course, was an experience by itself, although I must confess that I was not ready for the afternoon session, and it is difficult to get into that stage of climbing up and coming down, and until one has sufficient practice. But it was an experience worth going through and repeating by oneself. Yesterday's session by Dr. Eddie Belivoria again was an impromptu session. I was his roommate at Adyar, and by chance discovered that he was a grandson of my family's doctor for 3 generations. And it was a good opportunity for me to share some moments of intimacy with him, discussing various aspects. And the talk that he gave at Adyar was very enlightening, and in fact the one he gave yesterday I enjoyed even more, because it was the absolute concentrate of what he wanted to say. And we were indeed fortunate for a member of a Blavatsky Lodge in London, of a sister lodge, so to say, a person who has delivered the Blavatsky lecture, which has been published now, and for a person who has given courses. I don't know whether it was clear enough yesterday. He has not taken courses, but he has given courses at Narden and Crotona. And only persons of erudite knowledge and wisdom are invited to do that. So we were extremely fortunate to hear him, and I only hope that sometime later in this year or early next year we'll have the opportunity of inviting Brother Tyagi for a fuller session, perhaps for 3 days, when you can again go into greater depth, and Brother Eddie Belivoria again to share the platform, perhaps in a program of music and theosophy, because music is something very, very dear to his heart, and theosophy is his life, perhaps. So if he can combine it in his own original way, because yesterday's lecture was extremely original in my opinion. Nobody has really thought about the various teachings. One says that Blavatsky is good to study, one says that this book by Annie Besant is good, but the graded approach, the pillar surrounded by the foundation, by the supports, and thereafter, if we can only teach our members in this graduated and graded way, I think we'll be much more successful in spreading the message. And this is something which I will try to explain to our teachers in Blavatsky Lodge and the Bombay Theosophical Federation. There's so much to learn. I mean, I think a lifetime is not enough to study all these books. There's so much to learn. So if we do it in a graduated way, I'm sure that people will again come knocking to the doors of the first lodge in the country. On behalf of all of you here, and those who are not here but were there on the other days, I sincerely, most wholeheartedly thank Brother Satyavir and Brother Eddie Belivoria. Thank you very much. O hidden light, vibrant in every atom, O real light, shining in every detail, O hidden light, embracing all at once, may each who feels himself as one with beauty, know he is also one with beauty. Shabbos. Thank you.